Here we go, guys. We are officially beginning our first part one of becoming the CEO of your life, building the foundation and self-leadership, and what the heck this all means. I am so incredibly grateful and so honored that you guys are joining me here. It kind of feels like we just are hanging out. That's kind of how I want it to feel. Like we're having girl talk, like it's a mastermind, like we're just a community of women who want to empower each other and want to believe the good and assume the positive. And I'm so excited and so empowered. It's so empowering to have people join me on this and come on this journey with me. So welcome to part one on becoming the CEO of your life. There are a few norms I want to set for the day. Number one, I'm going to drink water a lot, so don't judge me. Number two, I want to make sure that you're in the right place. Okay. So if you are in the right place, you'll know this because you will have also felt things like I'm overwhelmed, I'm anxious, I feel judged, I feel frustrated, I feel like I'm not enough sometimes. I feel like I'm vulnerable and that's scary. Maybe you feel shame of a thought or an action that you've had. Maybe sometimes you seriously can't get your shit together, right? Maybe you don't feel like you're measuring up to other women that you see on social media or hear about in your life. And conversely, you're in the right place if sometimes you are productive as fuck. And excuse my French, that's going to happen throughout this because I keep it super, super real, guys. But sometimes you're like, I've crushed today. It has been a productive day. And other times you're ridiculously organized. Like the schedule's clear, the house looks great, the kids are fed, the dogs are fed. Like I had an organized and productive day. Sometimes you're really thoughtful and caring and you did something really special for a friend or a colleague or somebody. Maybe you sometimes feel like a fantastic wife, and maybe you sometimes feel like a shitty wife. Sometimes you're feeling like an awesome mother and you're doing everything right and having the right conversations and setting the right expectations with your kids. And other times you're 15 minutes late to school pickups. That's me. Been there on both fronts. Sometimes you feel like you know exactly why you were put on this earth. And sometimes you're not sure if you're even in the right career or the right space or the right brain space. And just maybe, you have the thought that you could do more or be more or accomplish more if you just had some more time in your day. Has anybody felt that before? I know I have. So 5 and 6 years ago, I worked as a program director for a CrossFit Kids program. I was a fitness coach for CrossFit and some group training classes for several years between 2013 and 2017. I loved it. One of the things that we did, because you guys, in a kids program, when you're coaching kids from 4 years old to 12 years old, there's a lot of different emotions and there's a lot of frustration and a lot of comparing and complaining and all these things. And at the end of every class, sometimes some of the kids in the class felt so defeated after class that it was important that I help them reshape that feeling and that energy into an empowering energy. So indulge me for a second. This may seem totally cheesy, but indulge me for a second by repeating after me. And it can be in your head if you're in somewhere, but if you're not, and if you're with people and you're watching this, I want you guys to say it out loud because that's going to have the most effect. Okay. Sit up in your seat, look straight ahead and repeat after me. I am smart. I am kind. I am tough. I am a good friend. I am loved. I am a good listener, and I'm going to take notes and I'm going to do everything that Rachel says. Okay, perfect. So let's be super clear on what a CEO is first. It's somebody who can basically take extreme ownership in every single area of their life, their decisions, their reactions, their schedule. We're not assuming other people's intent. We're not assuming other people's judgments of us, but we are believing our own, okay? Now, why am I even qualified to talk about any of this? I think that's important to name and important to identify. because, there's a lot of really badass women in the world, in the real estate industry, in any industry. There's a badass moms. There's all these different areas where there's some super badassery going on, right? So a little bit about me. I'm 36 years old. I have 3 kids, 13 almost 13, 10 and 6. My husband of almost 14 years, 14 years, is audacious and a go-getter and super buff and super handsome. His name is Michael. I'm sure you might know him. A couple other things about me you may not know. I delivered my own baby, my 3rd child. I delivered her myself on the toilet. Yes. I have returned baby shower gifts that I was given because I couldn't afford groceries. I've worked over 100 hours a week for weeks on end, as well as into my 39th and 40th week of pregnancy. I've employed 2 full-time nannies at one time, not seeing my kids awake for 5 days a week for months, literally 3 and 4 months on end. I've shown houses 7 days a week while my kids did homework in the back and watched Netflix on an iPad connected to my hotspot. I've lost entire commissions, thousands of dollars, because I fucked up, because of my mistakes. Mike and I have gone bankrupt twice in 15 years. It's been busy. It's been a really busy 15 years. We've been self-employed together for those 15 years. We have now built a very small but mighty team of top 1% agents here in the Pacific Northwest. And collectively, we do between 110 and 120 million in sales. That translates in our market to 215 to 260 houses a year. We're busy. I have a very close personal relationship with each one of my kids. That's important to me. My dogs, they look for me when I'm not home. I'm wanted, I'm needed. I have people who love me and who trust me and who I love and trust, having my 6 all the time, and I've got their 6 also. Those are some of the reasons that I am qualified to talk about being a CEO. I've messed up big and I've won big. And my journey is literally probably only, I don't know, a third of the way through. Heather, I feel that. I feel that. It is emotional. Absolutely. So a couple of things. I've learned how to compartmentalize when shit's hitting the fan. When things are just flying off the cuff or going wrong in every direction, I know how to compartmentalize and focus on what needs to get done immediately. I've learned how to stay confident in the face of failure, which there have been a lot. And I've also learned how to prioritize myself in the midst of all this chaos. Kids, dogs, husband, family, team, all these things. They need me, I need them, but I also need me, right? So let's talk about this. Let's understand the fact that it's like all of these concepts are nothing without action. Concepts look great on paper, but the implementation of things are really what are going to change your life. I'm going to screen share a little bit so that I can share some of these slides that I prepared for you guys. So here we go. Here we go. We did the I ams. You know who I am. Okay, we'll go back because I want to show off my beautiful children. Look at these kids, you guys. Look at those faces. So let's talk about the implementation of these concepts, because it's imperative to understand that anytime you go to a seminar or a conference or attend a webinar or to have a meeting with somebody that you see as a mentor or a coach or something along those lines, if you literally take one thing from that conversation or from that weekend or from that conference and actually implement just one thing out of it, you are excelling in that area. You are absolutely moving the ball forward. You are absolutely pushing it down the field. You are absolutely making a difference in your life. So I implore you today, and if you're going to join me for the next, 4 sessions of this, to take just one thing from each one and implement that one thing. Now, for those of you who may be sitting and maybe having, your notebook in front of you ready to take notes, please know that I have 3 concepts, and each one of those has 3 specific things, so you can format it correctly, because I understand that completely, okay? So One thing. Let's talk about what is self-leadership. What is being the CEO? What is this concept of owning everything that we do? I can tell you for sure what it is not. It is absolutely not guilt. It is not blame. It is not shame. And it is not regret. These emotions take you away from being able to own the things that you need to own in your life. Understood? What leadership of self is courage, confidence, and self-care. Now we're going to break all these down. Courage, confidence, self-care. Those are the three big things that we're going to break down of building the foundation to becoming your own CEO. CEO, right? Love the play on words. So what is courage? Let's deep dive here first. Courage is strength in the face of pain or grief. That is the definition of courage. So how do we build this? How do we build the strength to have courage in the face of pain or grief or things that we're dealing with? Three keys here, guys. Number one, compartmentalization. Like I said, we have to be able to identify what needs to be done immediately compared to what we need to deal with emotionally or mentally at the same time. Because it's not always feasible for us in our lives to stop what we're doing in the middle of a meeting or in the middle of driving somewhere to deal with whatever emotion that pops up or deal with whatever situation that pops up. We have to be able to compartmentalize, put that aside for a second, or deal with it directly in front of us if we can, and then move on to the next, right? Dwelling is the antithesis of courage. Resiliency. Resiliency is the other huge key to building courage. And grit, one of my favorite words. Being a gritty lady. What does this even mean? So let's break these down even further. Compartmentalization. Now, if you have not yet seen the urgent and important quadrants, this is something that I have the pleasure of coaching our agent partners on in our team. I do a partner training every single week. And we talk a lot about being able to compartmentalize because there's so many different things that we do, right? And as CEOs, we've got kid stuff, we've got dog stuff, we've got our own health stuff, we've got food we need to eat, we need to have, make sure that we're caught up on all the news feeds and all the stuff that's going on in the world and everything that's going on with our friends, and make sure that we check in with our mom, make sure I check in with grandma, make sure I make that birthday party. Oops, I forgot to go get that, gift card for that one person that I took. Holy smokes, like there's so many things to do every single day. How do we even begin with compartmentalizing or prioritizing throughout these things? This is how. Everything that gets thrown at me during the day, everything that we have to do, whether it's work or business or clients or team or kids or whatever, falls through or pushes through the lens, the filter of this urgent, important quadrant. So number one, absolutely imperative that if it's important and urgent, that we do it. It's likely only us that's going to be able to do it. So we have to, right? Prioritize that important and urgent quadrant. Number two, if it's important and not urgent, then we can plan for it, schedule it. Now, to give you an example of something that is important and urgent, we're talking if you're in business, like a time-sensitive contract, or as a parent, if I get a call that I've got a really sick kid at school, obviously that's important and urgent, and likely I need to break whatever I'm doing and go do that immediately, okay? That's an example of a couple of things. For the important, not urgent, something that I can plan, this would be something like reviewing the P&L from the previous month. Definitely important to do, but it's not necessarily urgent, but you can plan to do it. So schedule it in, put a time block in your calendar to do this. Something else maybe on a personal side. For me, it's really important to have a clean kitchen. I can't typically relax in my house unless I have a clean kitchen. However, it's not always urgent to do that, but it is important to me. So I can plan to do that. I carve out that extra 10 minutes before I have to drop my kids off at jiu-jitsu, and that's when I take care of it. It's planned. It's going to happen. Now we move down into the not important and urgent quadrant. Now these are something that we have to put through the lens of being able to delegate, whether that's delegating the dishes to a kid, whether that's delegating pickup to a spouse, or maybe Returning a time-sensitive phone call. Maybe you can have somebody on your team call that person back, or maybe there's somebody better suited in your life that can return a phone call or an email, right? It's not always something you have to do, but it is something that's urgent that needs to be done. And number 4, not important, not urgent. This is the biggest one, you guys, okay? This is the biggest one because us as women, we take on everything. We take on everything. So how do we even start by saying what's not important and not urgent? I'm talking about worrying about things that you don't control, stressing out about the thought of a potential situation. I mean, those are the not urgent, not important, absolutely needs to be eliminated from your life. They are not productive. Somebody once said, worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get anywhere. How true is that? So on this note, I would implore you to absolutely not stress about things that you can't control or about the thought of a potentially stressful situation. Now, examples of these. Say you messed up on something at work and you have to tell your boss. The stress of that weighs so heavy, right? So heavy. So that can be put in a multitude of different quadrants in that case. You can push it into the important and urgent quadrant and take care of it immediately, or you can plan for it with your boss, or you can literally have that conversation, eliminate it completely. And I'm not talking about the conversation that you're eliminating, but I'm talking about the stress of that conversation. Having it, get it over with, it's done, okay? Now, these are all absolute keys to building courage, because if you don't have compartmentalization, we go through our days trying to prioritize, feeling like we're running in a million different, directions, and it can be so incredibly stressful. So compartmentalizing, utilizing that urgent, important quadrant is so, so key. Number 2. Resiliency. Now, this is a lot of money, guys, $5,700. I have a story around this. About 3 years ago, I had a client who essentially we didn't communicate well on a very large sewer capacity charge that his house or that he had been covering in the duration of his home. This was the balance. $5,700 was the balance of it. Now, as it should have been written into the contract, as I should have written it into the contract, was that the buyer was going to assume this cost, right? The buyer was going to just be paying $200 a month over the next 15 or 20 years to cover this cost. Well, the settlement statement, the closing documents came in, and I did not remember to negotiate this into the contract. Big, big problem. My seller was not happy. My client was absolutely livid that he was now having to cover it. There was, after going round and round, talking to the buyer's agent, obviously, like, it's not their responsibility. I messed up the contract. I had to eat this much money, pay this much money to cover that for my seller. Now, those of you in real estate, you understand that this is basically an entire commission and a little bit more, actually. And that commission goes to pay my marketing, goes to pay my team, it goes to pay partners, it goes to pay for gas and taxes and all these things. So this was not an ideal situation. I was mortified, absolutely mortified. I felt like the biggest failure on the entire planet. And it was literally still the middle of the day. This was like noon 30 maybe. And I had to sit there and make the decision to eat this money and pay this money for my client to get out of it, because it was the right thing to do, because I messed it up. But how shitty is that? Have you ever made a mistake so big that you could literally crawl under a desk and crumble and cry for hours because you've just set yourself back so much? I know I have. $5,700 worth. It was awful. It was gut-wrenching. But thank you, Nicole. So have I. From that mistake, I was able to create processes and procedures where I do not miss these details anymore. This was a huge learning lesson. But the resiliency piece of this was that this conversation and this hard decision happened in the middle of the day. I want to say it was like a Tuesday, guys. It was the middle of the day. I still had shit to do in the afternoon. I still had 2 new sellers to go meet. I still had new clients to go show up for. So how do we, coming off of such a big failure, then turn around and put on our Sunday best and put on our smile and wipe the tears away and touch it up with a little bit of, concealer so that I can go slay the rest of my day? This is not easy. Literally, this is how my thought process went, guys. Sat down in my chair. I let myself cry, like deep, heavy sobs for like 2 minutes. And that's a long time when you're deep, heavy sobbing. I stood up, wiped my tears away, and I spoke my affirmations. I am smart. I didn't feel smart at all. I am tough. Didn't feel tough, but that is who I am. I am identifying as that person. I owned my mistake. I was going to figure out how I was going to make it right, obviously, but I had to turn around because I had to show up for other people. And I had to own being responsible for having the resiliency to turn around and continue to show up for people who needed me. That's not easy to do. So what do we truly control? Well, these things, guys. As CEOs, we are responsible for everything we do, everything we don't do, and how we react to what happens to us. That's it. If we can remember these 3 things that we're responsible for, we can build the resiliency to get through really shitty and really tough situations and turn around and still show up for the people who need us and still be true to who we are. I took responsibility for what I did. And then I took responsibility for how I reacted to what I felt at the moment happened to me, even though I was the cause of it. Does this make sense? Cool. So now when it comes to grit, number 3 on the courage building scale, grit can sometimes be construed as stubbornness, right? What is the difference? What's the difference between being gritty or being stubborn? Because I've known people who are both. I've known people who are more stubborn than gritty. And the biggest difference that I've come up with is that grit is courage and resolve, strength of character. So I'm consistently going to be the courageous one who shows up. That's grit. And it's because I'm choosing that. Stubbornness is simply the unwillingness to change one's mind. So it may present itself as grit, but really it can be to your detriment. So I want you guys to write this one down, okay? I don't have it on the screen, but I'm going to have you write it down. I have to be humble enough to suck for as long as it takes to get better. I have to be humble enough to suck for as long as it takes to get better. And if we can carry that humility, and if we can identify as somebody who has grit, who's going to continue to show up even when we suck at it, or even when we make mistakes at it, as long as we're learning and we're practicing the resiliency and we're compartmentalizing those different situations, we're going to build a really foundational level of courage in our lives, because the consistency to show up, or the gumption to show up, is what it really takes. So what gets in the way, guys? What gets in the way of this? This isn't a difficult one. What gets in the way is the fear of failure. So where does the doubt actually come from? Where does it come from? Where does this fear of failure come from? It's fear. So is it of judgment? Yes, Maria, exactly. Is it of what people think? Are you really afraid of failure, of failing at something? Or are you more afraid? Yeah, society. I love it. I love it. Yes, these are all great answers. Are you afraid of other people seeing you fail? Are you afraid of letting somebody down? So you don't do something because you're afraid that you're going to let them down. What about never showing the next generation? What about never showing the people who matter to you in life that you even tried? That's a great self-realization. The fear is not necessarily real unless you give it power. So if we continue to not show up and not show courage and not compartmentalize or show resiliency or grit, we are choosing that because we are responsible for everything we do and for everything we don't do. Natasha, absolutely. It's a fear of disappointing others. But what if we don't fail? What if we learn something from it that opens a pathway or creates a process in our life that is positive? We're not doing ourselves any favors. Write this down. Execution over perfection. I'll show you here. Has anybody ever had analysis paralysis before? I think us CEOs are, especially anybody who's a perfectionist, type A, would even consider borderline OCD on things. Things need to be right. Things need to be, well done. You don't want people to see you fail. You don't want people to be let down by you. You don't want to feel disappointment. You don't want to even potentially disappoint somebody. This is called analysis paralysis, overanalyzing or overthinking a situation so that a decision or an action is never taken. You guys, this is your biggest obstacle when it comes to exercising courage, analysis paralysis. Execution over perfection. I would rather do something when I'm 95% sure and have it not be exactly perfect, but I've done something, I've gotten it done, as opposed to giving power to that 5% that you may disappoint or you may let down. Living in the fear of the 5% is going to keep you from a big, big life. It's going to keep you from being the CEO of your life. So, execution over perfection. All right, ladies. Number 2, confidence. What is this confidence? Well, it's a feeling of self-assurance rising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. So what does that mean? How do we build that? And first of all, let's acknowledge the fact that you can build confidence. When I was growing up, there was always this air of, people saying, oh, she's born a leader. She was born with confidence. It's inherent in her. Bullshit, you guys. That's bananas. I am such a different person than I was 15 years ago. I'm a different person than I was 5 years ago. And it's the consistent focus on building myself in these areas that has gotten me to where I am. And you're no different. You can literally build these things. So how do we do that? Well, let's talk about the 3 keys to confidence. Number 1, keeping the promises that you make to yourself. Trust. Number 2, consistency. Anybody ever have issues with consistency in their fitness? Their diet? Yeah. And borrowed belief. This is where a community of women just like us right here come into play. Okay. Now this is number 2, and these are the 3 keys: keeping the promises you make to yourself, consistency, and borrowed belief. So let's deep dive. Confidence is a muscle. Oh, no, go back. I need you guys to all see this beauty here. This is Corey Baker. She is an IFBB bikini pro. And if your first thought when you look at this picture of her is, oh, she's pretty skinny, or, oh, maybe, oh, she's too muscly, She must have way more time than I do. I could never do that. I could never look like that because of X. Cottage cheese on my thighs, stretch marks on my belly. I've got big arms. I was born with the pooch right below my belly button. I don't want to do that. You're already justifying in your mind, oh, I would never want to look like that. Why? The reality is, when it comes to confidence, that you are your own problem. You've already made judgments and assumptions based on her looks. And therefore, you're going to go out in the world and you're going to assume everybody else will make assumptions about you. Do you really think that walking around or in the office, people are thinking more about you than you are? No. Guys, we're a pretty self-centered species. We think about ourselves. And it is ego that gets in the way when we really think that people are assuming things about us or judging us. They're not. Most people are thinking about like what they're going to have for their next meal, or the conversation they're going to have with their husband later, or they got to pick their kids up at 3, so they got to get shit done before then. But talking to yourself this way, talking to yourself in the way that you're already justifying why you couldn't look like that or do that, erodes your confidence. So let's flip the script. Let's change the narrative a little bit. How about things like, wow, that must have taken so much hard work. Wow, she is disciplined AF. Or if she can do it, maybe I can do it. We'll get into that in a second. This is where building confidence begins, you guys, because confidence is a muscle. The more promises that you keep to yourself, the more confidence you will have. Now, what kind of promises are you talking about, Rach? Oh, let's just share a couple of things here, team. Like, if I am on an eating plan and I know that I need to eat a certain way, is buying Oreos that I love, and I will eat an entire one of those sleeves in one sitting if it's in my house, is buying that conducive to me staying on my eating plan? No. Another promise that you might want to keep to yourself is, I told a client, or I told somebody, or I told a teammate, or I told somebody else, I'm going to get back to you by this time or this time. You'll see an email from me. I'm going to call you, whatever. And then you kind of get closer to that time, and then you just kind of like, you get busy and you forget, and it just doesn't happen. You've just eroded a little bit of a confidence in yourself. You've just broken your own trust just a little bit. By maintaining and doing the things that you tell yourself you're going to do, that helps build confidence. So I'm not going to buy those dang Oreos. And if I tell somebody that I'm going to email them, I'm going to fucking email them on time or earlier. Because every time you do something, every time you flex that muscle, every time you do the thing that you said you were going to do or told yourself that you were going to do, you're building your confidence. So if you say, I'm going to get up at this time and I'm going to read for 20 minutes with my coffee before I have to get my kids up in the morning, then do that. That's how you build the confidence. You have to build trust with yourself before you can expect anybody else to trust you. And the more you do that, the more you build your confidence, obviously the better life's going to be. Now, for consistency. Let's talk about a couple of concepts with consistency, because, you know, there are some things that we want to commit to and we want consistency in, but maybe we just simply can't. Like, we have to be realistic with what we're promising. We have to be realistic with the expectations that we set. And if you're going on some crazy diet plan that is completely 180 degrees different than you're currently eating, and it's way different than your kids and your husband eat, like, it's likely you're not going to be consistent with it. So be realistic. If you've ever, has anybody here ever like failed at a diet plan, an eating plan? I know I have many times. And what happens when I do that? What happens when I fail, or when I fail to have that consistency with that plan? Well, I've just eroded my own confidence. I don't think I can do it anymore. I don't think I have the stuff. I don't think it's a good time. I make all the justifications, but really, it's just that I didn't set myself up for success. So if we have a plan and we start small, then we're starting to build ourselves up for that consistency. Let's talk about seasons for a second, because all of us, every single one of us, are in a way different season likely in our lives. And it's so important to be able to recognize the season that you're in. Now, what I mean by seasons, I don't mean like almost spring, because out here in the Pacific Northwest right now, we are experiencing what's called fake spring, where it gets beautiful and it gets like 55, 60 degrees and the sky is blue and birds are chirping and everybody's happy and excited. And then in the next couple of weeks, it could snow or rain for 6 weeks straight. But that's not the seasons that I'm talking about. The seasons that I'm talking about are seasons in your life. Years ago, 4 and 5 years ago, when we first got back into the real estate industry, this was 2017 and 2018, I was working like 60 to 70 hours a week at minimum, okay? I was wrapping up my last appointments at like 7 p.m., 8 p.m. after leaving at 5 a.m. to go to the gym in the morning. There were a couple of weeks that I was getting home at 8 p.m. on a Thursday night. I had not seen my kids since I put them to bed on Sunday night. That, my friends, is a hard season. Getting into perfect daily schedule, that's what we're going to do next time. But this was a really tough season for me. But what I recognized was that I needed the experience, the track record, the reputation, and a savings account, a built-up savings account to be able to get into the next season, which is the life that I really wanted to live. And I recognized the fact that in this season, I had to do what it took to get me there. And it sucked. It was awful, to be honest. Like, I love the work that I do. I love the clients I worked with. But man, I felt like the worst mom. I felt like a shitty wife half of the time. But maintaining that season, recognizing that season, and staying consistent with the goals that I had throughout that season were so key. Now let's talk about borrowed belief. Like I mentioned, all the ladies in this group, all of the people, the positive people in your world, we need to create an environment where it's okay to believe that if she can do it, I can do it, right? That's borrowed belief. So do you see other people accomplishing cool shit? Do you want to accomplish cool shit? I know I do. So let's remind ourselves who we are. Affirmations, what we did in the beginning. I am smart. I am tough. I am lovable. I am a good friend. I'm a good listener. These are affirmations that we can tell ourselves even on the days we don't feel like it. I actually have an entire list of affirmations that I literally read to myself every single morning. And in fact, I've now created a voice memo of my affirmations so that I can listen to myself, read to myself who I am. Now, again, this may seem a little bit cheesy, but you guys, this works. You are consistently investing in yourself. And by continuing to read those affirmations to yourself, you are building the confidence to be who you want to be. So the borrowed belief is so key, because you see, like we see Corey Baker, that beautiful bikini model. She's a mom of 2. She's an RN. She does other stuff, but man, she chose that season in her life to create and change her body in a way that she felt so good and so confident. How many promises do you think she probably had to keep to herself? How much borrowed belief did she have to, take from others around her, because she's looking at other people saying, if they can do it, I can do it. We have to remind ourselves who we are. I am organized. I keep a tidy home. I am an exceptional wife and mother. I am humble enough to understand that I don't know what I don't know. These are powerful, powerful words to tell yourself. And you're not going to believe them at first. You're going to say them, and you're not really going to believe them. That's the key to the consistency of utilizing borrowed belief, okay? Now, implementation, like I talked about, just take one thing from this, guys, one thing, implement it. Because the willingness to show, and I want you to write this part down. Write this down. The willingness to show up changes you. It makes you a little braver each time. Now, if any of you have read Brené Brown, that's straight from her. But the willingness to show up, and then of course, the action of showing up makes you a little braver over time. So implementation, show up. This is in all areas. Be there for a friend if you can. You're compartmentalizing your time, you're compartmentalizing and prioritizing your tasks, but implementing these things, doing an affirmation in the morning or multiple affirmations preferably, doing those in the morning, set yourself up for who you are. Remind yourself who you are. Remind yourself you're a badass bitch, okay? Put that in your affirmations. So what is the antithesis of confidence? Limiting self-belief, self-sabotage. Has anybody ever experienced this? I don't think I can do it, so I'm not going to. Maybe, you know, I'm not really meant for that. I don't really know how. This comes down to ownership, ladies. If you are willing to own the outcome, you owe it to yourself to try. Whether that's for that promotion or meeting those new friends in the mom group or joining that gym or hiring that coach, taking a leap of faith on yourself. If you are willing to own the outcome, you owe it to yourself to try. All right. Number 3, self-care. Now, anybody else, when I mention self-care, when I even say those words out loud, do you think of like immediately massage, nails, lashes, cucumbers on your eyelids in a bathtub? That's like literally exactly the picture that I get when somebody says, oh, self-care, right? YOLO, self-care. Come on. I mean, I'm not saying that that's not self-care, but let's be perfectly honest that that's not the kind of self-care that builds confidence and gives you the ability to exercise courage. Okay. The self-care that I'm talking about is the self-care of your mind and of your schedule and of the integrity of your work and of the integrity of your person. That's the kind of self-care that I'm talking about. So, number 1 with self-care. You ready? Controlling your schedule. You control it. Number 2 in self-care, prioritization. If you know me or have followed me for any length of time whatsoever, you've heard me say that balance is bullshit, because balance is bullshit. It's all about prioritization in the season of your life, on the day of the week, of the month of the year. It's prioritization. And number 3, the power of no. I just had a great conversation with one of my friends about the power of no the other day. I'm excited to dive into this actually. So let's deep dive into controlling your schedule, ladies. Has anybody ever seen this metaphor before? Big rocks, pebbles, sand, trying to fit all of it into a jar. What that means. Self-care is the process of taking care of oneself with behaviors that promote health. Mental, emotional, physical, of course. But controlling your schedule starts with the big rocks. You have to place the big rocks in your life first. Now, if you are a 9-to-5 or if you are an employee, then of course, that's going to be a big rock because you have specific hours that you need to work. Do you control that? Yes and no. You've agreed to the position. You love your job. You love what you do. It's important to you. You have purpose. You have a home. So then, yeah, it's a big rock. So what outside of those hours do you control? Literally all the rest of your time, y'all. Literally all the rest of your time. You control it. So big rocks in my life and my how I explain it are health, your fitness, your family, your relationships, and your emotional health. So barring actual schedule of work, these are the things that need to be placed on your calendar first when you're controlling your schedule. Health, fitness, family, relationships, and emotional health. Okay. Then we work in the rest. So if I know that I work from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days a week, then I, of course, have that rock already in place. But the rest of my day around that before and after, I'm placing my big rocks. I'm placing when I'm going to go take care of myself, when I'm going to go on a walk, or when I'm going to make my food that I need for the next day, or when I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to prioritize and put in my calendar when I'm going to spend one-on-one time with my 13-year-old. I'm going to prioritize and put in my calendar when I'm going to have a date with my husband. I'm proud to say that Mike and I took this very seriously, and almost 2 full years running, every single Friday, we have a date. Every single Friday. It's important. It's a big rock. My marriage is important to me. I want to be married for a long time. I kind of like the guy. Big rocks, place those first. Then the medium rocks, work, clients, colleagues, meetings, important things, of course. However, at the end of your life, when you look back, is it going to be more important that you made time consistently in your schedule for your kids, in your marriage, or your relationships, or for your clients? Clients are important. I have now built my schedule for that I'm available 2 nights a week during the week and every other Saturday for clients. Now, that's the season that I'm in. So all of this is completely dependent on the season that you're in. So the median rocks, like I said, work, clients, colleagues. Now the sand, all the other little things that we want to do, the fun stuff, material possessions, hair, nails. I'm no stranger to that, right? Fun, wine nights with the ladies, wine and the sip and paint things, fun activities, hobbies outside of going to the gym. Those are all the things that we can sprinkle in and put into our schedule because we control that schedule. Now, if you're consistently saying yes to work and clients, step back for a second and say, is this the season that I'm in that I need to be doing this? Or am I going to reach burnout by doing this? Am I really taking care of my emotional health by consistently prioritizing other people outside of my family and myself? That's what we have to do. Now, like I mentioned, I don't know how many times I've sworn, but I'm sure somebody will count them for me and let me know. Balance is absolute bullshit. Prioritization is self-care. Prioritizing things like your kids, yourself, your marriage, your relationship with your mom or your grandma or your best friend. Now, it's never going to feel balanced. It's never going to feel like, oh, sweet, like, oh, like every night I do this, and every Friday we do this, and every week this happens. Like, there's no balance that happens. We have to choose and prioritize the different tasks and the different seasons as they come, putting them through the filter of the urgent, important quadrants. Has anybody here ever had like a marathon day? Like you're out of the house at 5 a.m. and you're not even back home till 8 or 9 p.m. I have those. Yeah, Heather, exactly. Or marathon week, where you get to Friday afternoon and you're like, I don't even know what am I doing with my life right now? Like, that's a marathon day. Conversely, has anybody ever had like a lazy day where you're like absolutely slothing on the couch all day? Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, movies. Yeah, exactly. Do you think that looking at that kind of schedule, Heather and everybody, after a marathon week, having a sloth-like day, super lazy day, do you think that feels balanced? Agreed, Christy. No, it's not balance. It's prioritization. You're prioritizing the times and the days that you need to get shit done, the level 10 days, and you're prioritizing those when they need to happen. So then you're also prioritizing the days that you can be lazy. And I call those like level 5 days. I had a coach one time that gave me this metaphor about living at different levels, right? Level 10 is like you're going, it's nonstop, you're constantly thinking about it, you're working long days, you're at high capacity, you're accomplishing a lot, you're productive as fuck, blah, 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 blah. And then some people that maybe don't know better or that are choosing a little less, they don't accomplish much. They go to work and then they come home and they watch TV and they don't really do anything to better themselves. And they may be living at like a level 1 or 2. Well, if any of you in here, which I know a lot of you are, high achievers, somebody who wants more, if you're literally here, if you're here, you probably want more, right? You're likely living between a level 7 and a level 10 at all times. Prioritizing which day gets which level is what's key to self-care. Absolutely true, Naraya. She says, if I don't prioritize self-care, it bites me in the ass, short and long term. Exactly right. That's what I'm talking about. We have to prioritize level 10 days when they need to happen, and we have to prioritize level 5 days when we need to do nothing. That's a reboot. And that's okay. Does anybody else ever feel guilty on the reboot days? Like you're sitting on your couch and like 4 hours in, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm a lazy asshole. Like I haven't done anything today. There's laundry still sitting in the washer. I haven't even turned over the dryer yet. Yes, like I'm a waste of space today. Stop. That is exactly the narrative, the doubt seeping in that's going to take you away from the self-care that you need. But remember, being able to say, yeah, good, Christy, give yourself grace. Grace is okay. As long as on the other days that you need to show up level 10 and you need to show up full confidence, showing up, making yourself more brave, those are the days that you can prioritize as well. So if I've got a couple of days a week that I've identified as my level 10 days, I'm going to knock those out of the park. I'm going to show up for them. I'm going to be prepped for them. I'm going to be ready for them. And then on the other days, I'm going to enjoy. I'm not going to feel guilty, and it's going to happen. So it is exactly, Michelle, rest and recovery time, 100%. The last part of this is the power of no. Have any of you ever heard of the 5 a.m. club? So my good friend Sharon Srivatsa started the 5 a.m. club several years ago, like 7 years ago, maybe. And one of the most powerful, I have so many quotes. I have like literally a library of quotes from that. And one of the best things that came out of that for me was the power of no. Is anybody here kind of a yes person in their life? Like the one that anybody can go to and you know you'll put it on your plate and you'll take it on your shoulders and you'll like make sure it gets done. And that's like a point of pride for you. Like it's a point of pride, like I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do this, and I got you, and I'm gonna do that, and blah, 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 blah. Yes. We pride ourselves on overworking ourselves. We pride ourselves on not taking any rest. We pride ourselves on saying yes to everything so that people don't feel disappointment or we don't let people down. But you guys, everything that we say yes to, you're saying no to something else. And likely, most of the time, we're saying no to self-care. Let me repeat that. Every yes is a no to something else. So how are you prioritizing? What does being a yes woman accomplish? I'm asking you. What does being a yes woman accomplish in our lives? Does it get you further toward, does it get you closer to your goals? Yeah, Kim. It gives us some false sense of people think we're important and people totally think that we can do everything. We've already identified this. If you're consistently prioritizing a yes for somebody else over self-care for yourself, you're not, that's not going to win. Yeah, it totally hurts your confidence, Ashley. That's exactly right. This hurts your confidence. It erodes your confidence when you're saying yes to everybody else and you are not prioritizing your own self-care. Love that, Heather. You can't pour from an empty cup. That's exactly right. And sometimes, has anybody ever experienced the feeling of like, I'm being selfish if I don't say yes to something? I know I have. But man, doesn't self-care require a little bit of selfishness? I'm going to change that word and not use selfishness, but prioritizing self-care. Let's reframe how we look at that, right? You guys, you don't have an identity problem. I'm sorry, you don't have a discipline problem. You have an identity problem. If you're not identifying as a CEO, if you're not identifying as somebody who takes ownership in every single area, then you're not going to be doing the things to build the confidence, to exercise the courage, and to prioritize the self-care in your life. Being the CEO means you're prioritizing these things. It means you're building those confidence traits and the courage, and you're showing up. You're feeling good about showing up. You're implementing self-care. We're going to end on this, guys. One more thing, and then I want to look through some of these questions if you guys have any for me. But we get in our own way. Yep. One more time, ladies, to round this out before I look at these questions. Repeat after me. Sit up in your chair, shoulders back. I am strong. I am courageous. I am confident. I am excellent at prioritizing self-care. I am an implementer, and I am the CEO of my life. All right, guys. That's it. That's the foundation. Courage, confidence, self-care. Prioritizing each of those things, showing up for your people. That's it. Now pick one of the things of any of the notes that you were able to take, and I want you to deep dive on that in your life. I want you to implement it. Now, part 2, it's going to be very fun. We're going to look at the CEO's perfect daily schedule. How to fit in being a mom, fit in being a professional, fit in being a wife, and feel like you're moving forward on all fronts at all times. Almost impossible. It feels like it's almost impossible. That's going to be Thursday, March 31st, 11 a.m. I'll be posting the link for that and sharing. Everybody who is registered will get that link as well. So thank you guys. I'm so incredibly honored that you guys were all here. It's incredibly empowering for me. I'm just about running 1 minute over here, but thank you so much, you guys. I don't disagree. There might be something in the works for a CEO group, maybe a mastermind coming forward. So thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day. I'm getting chills from all these comments. Thank you. Take care. Go crush the day. I'll see you in a few weeks.